My working thesis moving forward is the Attica Uprising, and specifically the demands for labor rights for incarcerated individuals, should be situated within the civil rights era as a legitimate facet of the Black freedom movement, and along with the rest of the movement should be called upon as a credible source for the modern push against for-profit prisons, with consideration of these issues as continuations of our country's legacy of for-profit systemic racism. So that's a bit of a mouthful, so I'll just move through it bit by bit and sort of explain what I've concluded from my research thus far. So starting with the Attica Uprising, I've decided to focus on a prison uprising specifically because, as we've talked about in this class, it's so important to elevate the voices of members of the community that the social issues that we're researching affect. So it shouldn't necessarily be to academia to decide what the biggest issues facing incarcerated individuals are. We should really be drawing our information from those individuals themselves. Situating the movement within the civil rights era is just important from a historical perspective, and also in order to get people to understand what the prisoners' rights movement really was about. My main source for information on the Attica Uprising is Heather Ann Thompson's book, Blood in the Water, that was just published in 2016 and is the first comprehensive history of the Attica Uprising, which occurred in 1971. So we've obviously got a 45-year gap in scholarship that really needs to be filled in order for people to be able to understand the legacy of the prisoners' rights movement and additionally its foundations in civil rights. The discussion of for-profit prisons is, for me, an ethical one. I think it's a question that we, as a society, need to ask ourselves if big corporations should really be profiting off of mass incarceration, and additionally what that means for us moving forward if we plan to dismantle the prison system as we see it. It's definitely an issue that's deeply embedded in many facets of our society, but the issues regarding capitalism are ones that I think should speak to our moral and social conscience as citizens of the United States. And then finally, just contextualizing these issues within our country's history. I chose prison labor because there's so many connections that have been made by academics and scholars between slavery and prisons and just their shared goals and outcomes. And I think that when you take prison labor into account, it's disturbingly similar to slavery, which again is really not shocking, but unfortunate in a country that has still failed to make reparations from the time of slavery and is in fact just continuing to use, larger institutions to oppress the same groups over and over again.